Bitcoin eat bonds? Will it eat real estate? Will it eat life insurance? I think that's the question, the big question going forward when you're positioning yourself and trying to look for an investment that's going to give you actual returns, that's going to beat inflation and, well, beat everything, I guess, over the next coming decade, 10, 12, 15 years. When you have life insurance, for instance, that's guaranteed a 4, 5, 6, 7% return each year, but then you've got Bitcoin that's really going to be compound annual growth rate is going to be anywhere from 90% to 200% a year. At the end of the day, short term might not make sense, if you're just buying it today, buying Bitcoin, but if you're having life insurance and something happens tomorrow, yeah, you're going to need that most likely, that life insurance. However, if you're looking 10, 15, 30, 50, 100 years out, Bitcoin could prove to be an immensely better product than life insurance. When you can lend against it, it's your own, it's sovereign, you have your own keys. That's something it could be a massive game changer. So I think today, that's just really the thing to think about is Bitcoin over everything. Really at the crux of everything we do, making you think. I think that's the biggest thing. I love thinking about things. I love pondering things. I love looking at things from different angles. So how can we look at things differently? Again, the light bulb went off for me a year or two ago. I think it was early 2020 when I was just looking at life insurance and learning a ton about life insurance. And I knew a little bit, but I have some friends that are in it and helped me understand it immensely. But when I'm looking at it, why would I take something that's only compounding a fraction of what another asset is? And it can do the same kind of thing. I don't have to sell my Bitcoin. I can hold it and I can lend against it and it can appreciate just like a house could. It can keep appreciating. Gold and silver, it could keep appreciating, but I'm holding the asset and lending against it, which is one of the most powerful things you can do, especially in this environment with an inflationary world, the dollar being debt. This is what is the game plan going forward. So why hold those things? Now, I think there's a time and place for all those things. There's a time and place for all those assets. However, Bitcoin being the fastest horse in the race proved everything against Bitcoin has been falling and in the last 10, 12 years. So that is something we have to continue looking at, and it's just mathematics. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is just mathematics. So we have to understand those different things. So if we have life insurance and it's giving us, we'll say 5 to 6% each year. If Bitcoin's at 90%, 120%, 150%, that's crushing this. It's crushing inflation. We know inflation is, really probably 15 to 20% is inflation right now. So we know that. We got to beat that somehow. So how are we beating inflation? Well, it could be Warren Buffett, and you could be getting 25% over the last 70 years because you're finding great companies buying low and selling high, being patient like we talked about in one of our other videos, patient investing, investing patiently. This is massive. And if you do that over time, let compounding work for you and buying low and then holding and then selling calls against your stocks, letting them cash flow, having the dividends come to you, that builds over time. Then you're not taking that out and you can pour that back in and buy even more stock. That's how you get 25% returns and you're worth $100 billion as Warren Buffett is. But in the more short term, how are we beating life insurance? We're beating life insurance here because they're at 5 or 6%. And at the end of the day, you still have, and I think this is really important, a really, really big thing that just doesn't get talked about, which is you still have risk. You have counterparty risk. And I think this is, again, something that doesn't get talked about enough. You have that risk of whether it's nickel, the shorts, and then pulling everything, or Robinhood, you have the short selling there, and the Reddit boys, and they shut everything down. That could happen with life insurance. Who's to say that someone doesn't take control? Governments don't take control of insurance companies eventually, or the wrong person gets in power. I mean, people just take everything, and I think that's the one thing. I'm not skilled at any one thing per se, but I know one thing I like to think about is everything through the filter of freedom and through the filter of how could this go wrong? How could someone take what is rightfully mine or rightfully yours? If you have a bad person in power, and that's what people always used to ask me, Brandon, if I don't believe in God, like why should I, believe that, like we're a nation of laws, not a nation of men. Like if I don't believe in God, then what say you? And I always say, well, you have to, even if you don't believe in God, you have to think of something bigger than you. There has to be something bigger than all of us. Carl Sagan's pale blue dot, we're just this tiny speck in the universe. When you zoom out, the earth is nothing. You can't even see the earth anymore. When you zoom out in the universe, we are that small and insignificant. We need him. He does not need us. We need him. We have to understand, we humble ourselves and get down on our knees and understand there's something bigger than all of us. And there are people seeking power all the time. And it's a great video, by the way, Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot. Go watch it on YouTube. It's an incredible video. And counterparty risk is a massive concern, as we saw in the trucker protests, as we saw in Ukraine. We're seeing this all over the place. People getting their life stamped out or frozen because governments or people in power, the elites, don't like what you're doing. So who's to say that that's around? So I think that's a really big thing here going forward. Then you've got bonds. Why would I be paying to have someone hold my money? So you got negative rates. So you're not even getting 5 or 6%. You've got probably negative 5% is really what it is. So negative 5%. So why in the world would I take a bond risk or go into life insurance when I can get, like we said, we can get Bitcoin here at 100 to 200% per year. Why would I take any of these risks here? Any of these? If that's compounding, I mean, when you put the math out and it looks very simplistic, but it is what it is. The math is math. That's what's amazing about just life and investing. And then Bitcoin, it's mathematics. It's just straight mathematics. The adoption curve, the network effects, if only a couple % of the world's cash goes into Bitcoin, what happens? Going to 500,000, 1 million, 5 million, and beyond a coin. This is why you have to, and I'm not saying put everything into Bitcoin. I don't have everything in Bitcoin, but a large chunk is in Bitcoin, and understanding portfolio management and risk and risk you're taking. So, having cash on hand, or maybe having some bonds in a sense is you're having it's an option on having that cash. It's optionality to be able to go in to buy things when they dip down. People have asked me a ton too, why is Bitcoin correlated to the NASDAQ and it just going like a leveraged tech stock? Well, the biggest reason is there's still almost no one in it. There's only a couple % of the world in Bitcoin. There's still a very small market, so it's very volatile, and there's a lot of retail in it. So they think of it as a tech play, which it's not. When the smart money gets in, which most of the smart money is not in, a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of the smart money has not even come in. They've said they're coming in. A fraction of the smart money has said they're going to come in. A lot of it's not in yet, though. And I think that's the big thing, the big misunderstanding. That's why it's correlated. And again, we've had the uncorrelated assets video, making sure we have different asset classes we're investing in, true diversification. But when these actually decouple, and Bitcoin decouples from the NASDAQ and the tech stocks, stuff like that, you're going to see this continue to take off. And it's going to be crushing these other things. And then bonds, like what's going on here, when you have bonds and it starts demonetizing everything, real estate, I mean, it's truly the best play on earth. Why would I have property taxes going up? We know property taxes are going to continue going up because there's so much debt in the system. We know that they have to continue raising property taxes. We know rent control is going to come in at some point. Absolutely. The way life is going, whether it's in a year or 10 years from now, we know rent control is going to come in. So why would I take that risk of not being able to increase my cash flow? And again, I have rental properties. We have rentals, and I think that's an unbelievable play. And you have to have it as that cash spigot to be able to print currency, your actual currency, that the jurisdiction you're in, to be able to print that currency and not be taxed on it and be able to take it out and refi it, things like that. But you have to start thinking, fourth dimensionally, in the sense that why would I take these risks? They all have counterparty risk. There's country risk here. There's owner risk here for who's owning this company, the life insurance company. Where Bitcoin there's zero risk, really. I mean, there's greater than zero, I should say. But when you are holding it and it's sovereign and you are custodying it, that's where there's little risk. Now, there's risk of the electricity, the grid going out, things like that. But then there's ways around that. Which we won't get into today. But there's ways around that if the grid goes down. But again, that's why I'm not all in Bitcoin. That's why I also have physical metals, gold and silver, and have other asset classes, because you don't know what's going to happen. None of us can predict absolutely what's going to happen. So how are we beating this? This is the biggest thing. Bitcoin over everything. And I think like I said, at the end of the day, the big thing is demonetization of all the asset classes. When people realize Bitcoin is the fastest horse, that is when you're going to see real fireworks, because you're going to have bond prices start to go down. When people start leaving bonds, what happens then? You have bond prices going down because people are leaving it, and then rates are going up. So bonds goes down, and then they're inverted, right? So price goes down, and then the rates go up. So that's a huge thing. Which same thing with real estate. Which I'll put real estate right here. Demonetizing real estate. So what happens? Same thing. If people are leaving, like such as I've stopped. We have some funds and different things we're doing, but for the most part, I've stopped a bit of my real estate buying, and we're buying just more Bitcoin. So what happens here is when money starts leaving real estate, people start realizing that prices come down, right? Because when you start leaving that asset class, the prices are going to go down of those assets, and people will be able to start affording those homes again. So same thing, like I said, with bonds. When those prices start going down, the rates start going up. So you're going to see the system start fleshing itself out naturally, as a free market should. So same thing with life insurance. Life insurance will get cheaper because you're going to have some people, such as myself, thinking in terms of having Bitcoin instead of that. So you're going to have the price of life insurance going down over time, which is a great thing because that makes it cheaper for the rest of us, the entire market. Now we can buy bonds cheaper. We can afford more life insurance. We can afford housing. This is what's so beautiful about this, when the free market actually finds a solution, an actual solution, and puts it into practice. This is the most important thing about all of this, is we have an actual solution, and it's over everything. So a little thought experiment today. And I love in the Bitcoin magazine, they have right at the end of their session every time, they have, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I don't know why I can't think of his name. So he's incredible though, and he has just these thought experiments he does all the time. It's just thinking really outside the box, thinking 10, 50, 100 years ahead. And I love when he does that. For some reason, like I said, I can't think of his name, just drawing a blank all of a sudden. But Michael Saylor does this all the time, just these thought experiments. And this is going to be the demonetization of all these other asset classes. You're going to see stocks, same thing. As people flood out of, and retail comes more into, especially the institutional money, the smart money comes into Bitcoin, you're going to see everything start demonetizing. Same thing, like we said, with stocks. We can put stocks up here as well. So stocks, same thing. When people realize, wow, I can go here, well, again, you're going to see price go down. You're going to see the value go up, buying low and selling high, just like Buffett. Being patient though, waiting for these things to happen. And the number one way to be able to tell when things are cheap or when they're expensive is pitting these things against each other. So charting out Bitcoin versus stocks, Bitcoin versus life insurance, Bitcoin versus bonds, Bitcoin versus the median price home, Bitcoin versus oil. And that's a whole nother talk about pricing oil in Bitcoin, things like that, things that I know will happen. There's a lot of people out there saying that absolutely will happen. Russia's already said they're doing it in rubles and they'll take Bitcoin. So that will happen because Bitcoin is an energy play, and it will demonetize all these assets. Some of them completely, some of them to a large degree, but it will make these all affordable. At the end of the day, it will make them more affordable for you and me, which is amazing because we want to be diversified. We don't want to be just in one asset. So Bitcoin over everything, that's the thought experiment for today, to go through this and just play this out. And these are some of these things, again, just what will happen? What will happen if things and people start flooding into Bitcoin more? You're trying to beat inflation, and that's just going to continue rising over time because it has to. And it's going to demonetize these, making them all cheaper for you and I, and being able to allocate more resources around our portfolio and have a better balanced portfolio that's providing cash flow. Real estate providing cash flow for us, bonds providing better cash flow, the rates going up, life insurance obviously short term, and being able to have that, and long term. But then stocks, same thing, buying low, selling high like Buffett does, buying your corporate dividends aristocrats, buying your Coca-Colas, your Johnson & Johnsons, all these different stocks, having those at unbelievable prices, spitting off great dividends. So that's the thought experiment for today, guys. And let me know your questions and comments on this, because I'd be very fascinated to know what your thoughts are of this and what you see coming forward. That's just some of really what I see going forward, and I would really be curious to see what you think as well. We'll see you guys in the next one.